I got back a couple of days ago from 5 days away in Guernsey, just a short break. It was nice to get away from work and everything over here for a bit. But I thought there was a few things. I didn't really put much research into what was over there before I went over there, because I know it's not it's only a small island, and I thought I'd rather see things in the moment rather than plan where to go, really. But there was 10 things that I picked up on that I thought were worth mentioning that I didn't know before I went over there. So first thing is the blue letterboxes. Obviously we're used to having the red ones over here, and both the ones in the wall over there and the ones you see in the street are all blue. But I did find out that there is one red one in the capital of St. Peter that's apparently one, if not the oldest post boxes in the whole of the UK. The second one, I've got a list here, that's why I'm looking to my side, is there's a few vehicle related ones. All the junctions over there are filter junctions. So here they do have traffic lights over there, but there's a lot of filter junctions, so there's no real right of way at most of the junctions. That you just kind of you get to a lot of crossroads, and it's a case of relying on everyone playing their part and filtering, taking in turns to move through the junction. Don't quite know how that would work over here, but seems to work in the most part over there, and everyone knows the system. So the third one I noticed was the registration plates on the vehicles. They're all numbers. I did see a couple British plates over there, so they would have had to they were vehicles obviously exported from the mainland over to the island. But all the vehicles there are actually on the island themselves, that are from there, all have 5-digit numbers. And I did see, obviously when people get new vehicles, then they keep their plates and move them on to the next vehicle as a rule. So I did see a few 3-numbered plates over there. I saw a few 4 as well, but predominantly it's 5-numbered registration plates. And I looked it up, and apparently there's 90,000 vehicles registered over there. So at some point, I assume someone's going to get that first reg plate with 6 numbers on it when they hit the 100,000 point. The next one is the parking. They've got these discs that they have in their windows, and say you park somewhere that's got a 2-hour limit. You park up and you put this card in your window. It's got and you put the time that you've parked up, and it's sort of, again, it's done on a like with the junctions, it's done on a trust basis, and that your time that you put on it is accurate, and you can get penalised for it if someone comes along and you've put the wrong time. You've put a time that hasn't occurred yet. So say you park at 2 and think, I'll just put it as 3, and someone comes along in that time and spots that, then you can get trouble for that. You set the time that you've parked up, and then if someone does come around, like assume they have parking attendants like they do here, if they come around and see the meter, or see your park kit, you've been there for longer than the allotted allowance in that area, then you can get in trouble for it. And then the different areas I saw ranged from sort of half an hour or so in the busier areas, and up to sort of 10 hours or so, or even I think it was 23 hours in some of them. Again, yes, it's all done. Every car I saw had one of these cards in the window with the time on it that you set to the time when you park up. And they all have their. Remember, we in the UK we used to have the your tax in the window on the vehicles. Well, they've got a similar thing over there, but that shows their insurance. So very quickly, you can look at the vehicles, and the assumption must be that they've all got the tax over there. If they pay road tax, I don't know the details on that. But in terms of insurance, that's what they seem more concerned about. So you can look at any vehicle, and in their window they will have the equivalent of a tax disc, but it's actually an insurance disc showing when that vehicle's insurance runs out. which obviously in terms of accidents and stuff is probably more important than the tax side of things. Another thing I noticed as we sort of drove around the island was the amount of massive empty greenhouses. And I was told at the time, and I confirmed this by looking it up, they used to have a massive tomato industry over there, and that went tits up, and now they're just left with these massive empty greenhouses just falling apart, glass falling into the ground. So it's going to be an effort to grow stuff in that land in the future. But they're restricted in terms of developing on that land because it was once plantation. So it's you've just got these massive empty greenhouses taking up valuable property space, and I think at some point they're probably hoping that they're going to fall into such disrepair, they'll just say, well, you can now develop on them and open up all that valuable land. Considering I think the average price of properties over there is getting on for $500,000, then you can imagine what those vast areas are worth to developers, and they're probably just sitting tight thinking at some point they're going to make a good enough offer, rather than having these greenhouses that don't look nice either because they're in such disrepair, being overgrown by everything that's with no one looking after the weeds and that inside. They're just like they're the triffids taking over these empty greenhouses. So at some point I'm sure they will get knocked down and developed into something that aren't such an eyesore. The next one, number 7, is the kiosk culture. So you've got lots of I walked 20-25 miles in the 5 days I was there, and still didn't really feel like I'd repeated anything in terms of where I walked. So there's plenty of lanes and walkways over there, as well as the whole coast. Amazing views over there, and seeing lots of all the history. You get to see all all the towers over there that were used against the French, and when the Germans took it over as well in the Second World War. They redeveloped some of them and turned ancient structures into sort of hideouts and gun turrets that they could make use of. And they've recently started putting up history boards everywhere. So even the locals were kind of, they're learning as they go as well. I met people that had been there for generations, and yet even they were pleased to see these boards going up, because it cleared up some of the things for them, and more so for people like me going over there that with a blank slate, that didn't know any of the history and don't live around it day in, day out. That was and on all these walks. My point with the kiosks is, on all these walks, especially around the coast, you've got lots of kiosks. So they tend to be sort of communal meeting points, really. I imagine that I was there last week, so October, but in the summertime I imagine it being pretty crazy there, but they were even busy when I was there. So you've got all these walks around the coast and all these kiosks doing snacks and drinks and all that, and there's just kiosk signs all around the coast where people kind of meet up, which was nice. Speaking of the coast, there's we did walk across to one island, but we could only get there. It was only you could only reach it when a walkway appeared, the causeway, for about, I think, a 4-hour stretch during the daytime. I was told about the tidal times. The tides are one of the highest in the world, in terms of the difference between high and low tide. So I think it's about 35 feet, something like that. So roughly the height of a house between high and low tide. So if you imagine that massive difference, so that causeway that we walked across, which was only we were still walking through water in parts of it. So imagine that having a height of a house on it a few hours later is pretty mental. And obviously because it's so exposed out in the sea, that's why it's got such a high range in its tides. 9 is the money over there. They've got their own money in Guernsey. The UK sterling is usable over there, but they have their own money which isn't usable back in the mainland UK. So yeah, I didn't actually see any of that because I was using my card all the time I was over there. But yeah, they have their own Guernsey money that can be used abroad, obviously to try to keep it within the country and keeps people spending money on keeping that cycle of money going on their own island, rather than taking it abroad. And and then part of that money is they still have the £1 note over there, which obviously we got rid of a long time ago, but they still use it over there. And the last one is in one of the kiosks I was in, or one of the larger kiosks. I wouldn't really call it a kiosk, it was more of a sort of cafe, enlarged kiosk on one of the walks I went on, and they had nice food or burgers and stuff. But they said during October that there was a deals on where they were a lot cheaper, at half price. And I mentioned it, and I was told that goes back years. I think it was 25 years. They started a thing called Tennerfest, and it was in October, obviously after the peak of the summer. They started this Tennerfest where I think it was 2 meals for a tenner, and they started that. So this was well before, so when we had lockdown here and incentives like that started up to encourage people to go out and eat. They started that over there a couple of decades ago, once the summer peak had gone, to try to get people out in October. So yeah, back then it was the tradition is known as Tennerfest, based on a couple of meals for a tenner. But now that's just kind of, obviously places aren't really going to survive doing 2 meals for a tenner. So now they've just got other deals on. Like the one I saw was 15 quid burgers reduced to 7-8 quid, something like that. So it's still incentives, not necessarily called Tennerfest in everywhere that it takes place, but that's where it all comes from. Yes, that's the sort of encouragement they have over there to get people still going out beyond those summer months, before it all kicks off and the weather comes in and everyone hibernates through the winter because it's just too brutal. And it was beautiful weather while I was there, and I highly recommend a visit. And if you want cheaper food and make use of the Tennerfest tradition, head over there in October like I did. Cheers.